Hello friends, and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make a beef and potato skillet. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this, and the best thing about this is basically this is a one skillet meal because we're going to do two things. We're going to make potatoes, we're going to make beef, but when we merge them together with all of the different things that are going in with the seasoning and the olive oil and everything, the onions and all, it's gonna have a great taste. But this is one thing that when you mix it up, this is pretty much dinner all in itself here, just in one skillet. But it has the best taste because this is something I just enjoyed eating when I made this up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut up between 4 and 5 medium potatoes. Now we kind of want them a little on the bigger side because we want to actually load this with some potatoes, and we're going to cut these into cubes. So that way when they're cooking in there, you're going to have some cubed beef, we're going to have some cubed potatoes, we're going to have some green and red peppers and onions, and all this is just going to work together for something really great. So we're going to start out in a large skillet, which we're going to add at least 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil and then 3 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to get this butter melted because we want to make sure that it's already on its way before we add anything else to it. And then once we get that done, we are going to have 1 medium onion cut up into smaller pieces going into this butter. And you want this hot when you do this because you can see mine is already sizzling away. Go ahead, add in your onion, and we're going to actually just move this around in here a little bit, get it cooking up. It doesn't have to cook entirely. We're just going to get it on its way because we're going to add other things to this, and along the way it's going to cook together. So go ahead and move this around, get it coated with the butter and the olive oil. And then after that, we're going to add in the potatoes that were cut up earlier. And like I said, this is either 4 or 5 medium potatoes, a little bit on the bigger side. And as you can see, they do fill up this pan quite a lot. Then we're going to add a ½ teaspoon of pepper and a ½ teaspoon of salt to this. And then once you get that in, mix it up so that way everything is incorporated. And that way the salt and the pepper gets over all of the potatoes, not just some of them. And continue to cook this because we want to cook these potatoes for at least about 8 minutes. Because you don't want any hard potatoes ending up in the end result of this. We want these cooked through. But we also want to cook them for a while until the outer edges start to get this golden edge to them, kind of browning to where they're looking really cooked. Now, one thing you're going to do with this as we're cooking them is you're going to make sure you keep turning these. But as we get to the point where they start getting that golden brown edge, we're going to do a fork test on them just to make sure they're cooked completely. Because, like I said, you don't want to bite into a potato and find out it's still crunchy because it wasn't cooked all the way. So continue to stir these as they're cooking. And 8 minutes should pretty much get you to a good spot with these, because once you keep them going at a high temperature, because we're cooking on medium to high heat here, that should do what we need it to do. Now, if you go to check these and you go to put a fork in one of these and it's totally not going in easy, you know it's not done. Because this is just the way to test it. The fork always tells the truth. Because if you stick it in and there's a lot of resistance, you're not ready yet. But if you put it in and it comes in and out easily, it is. See, I'm testing mine already, and mine was a little bit resistant. I wasn't really happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and give it just a little longer to cook. So if you had to go for almost 9 minutes, that's perfectly fine. But once you get to a point where you see a lot of golden edges, and you test it with the fork and it goes in really easily, you know you are done with these. Now, once we get these completely cooked, we're going to remove them from the pan, set them on a plate to the side, because we want to get ready for the next step of this. And that's going to be cooking the beef. So go ahead, grab all of these out of here, set them to the side. We are going to use the same skillet though. This is the best thing about it. Like I said, there's not really a lot you have to change about this. So now we're going to add at least 2 tablespoons of olive oil and about 3 tablespoons of butter to the pan. And go ahead and melt this again. Go ahead and stir it around until your butter is really melting. And then we're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of pepper onion blend, which you can get out of the freezer section, which basically means you're adding green peppers, red peppers, and some onion to this, because this is going to cook in with the beef to flavor it. So yes, we did have onions already, but that was actually for the potatoes. So go ahead and stir this around a little bit. We don't want to really completely cook this. We're just going to do this for about maybe 3 minutes until we actually make sure that if any of this was still frozen, it's thawed out and it's starting to cook before you do anything else. So once you've gotten to the point where you've done this for about 3 minutes, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of minced garlic to this. Drop it in the center, start stirring it around, and then let it cook for about a minute, and you're going to know when this is really starting to cook because you're going to smell this. And one great thing about this is it's such a great smell in your kitchen when you're cooking with garlic and peppers and onions and everything. It just has a really neat smell. Now, once you've gotten to the point where we've already gotten everything cooked and you're already smelling that garlic, we're going to add our beef into it. So when you're adding your beef, you can use 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of cubed beef. This doesn't have to be expensive, just any kind of cut. And to this, we're adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and we're going to mix this up. Now, if you wanted to use really expensive beef in this, go for it, but it's expensive. That's why I just went with some actual really cheap beef to use, and it works just fine. To this, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and again, mixing it up. And what we're going to do is get this completely mixed through, make sure everything is coated really well. And then we're going to let our beef kind of sit for a second and let it cook, because I'd say leave it for at least 3 minutes. So what's on the bottom side of this is actually going to start to brown and cook and sear. And then after that, we're going to mix it up and continue to cook for at least another 5 minutes or more. But this is one of those things where it's however you desire your beef to be done to a certain level. Like if you like medium done or well done or whatever, that's what you're trying to achieve with this. I'm going for probably around medium. So that's why I said I'm just going to do mine for 3 minutes, let it sit, rest. We're not going to mess with this at all. Then come back to it and do at least another 5 minutes after it's been stirred up so the other sides can actually start to brown and get done. So once you get to the point where you think that you've had this in there for about 3 minutes, go ahead and stir it up. And as you can see, as we mix this through, you can actually flip the pieces over to where you're going to get the ones that are kind of pinkish and reddish on top. Turn them over, get them onto the bottom, so that way they can actually start cooking on the other side. And basically, once you get this to the point where you've cooked your meat, we're going to be ready to add our potatoes back into this again. Because as you can see with mine, it's actually already cooked to about the doneness that I want it to be. But again, this is a matter of taste. So you're going to have to decide how you want yours done. So once you get this done to that point, you can go ahead and add your potatoes into it. Now, once the potatoes are into this, we're going to let this cook for at least maybe 3-4 more minutes because we want to make sure the potatoes are hot, but we also want to make sure that everything kind of blends together. And we're going to end up adding at least 1 teaspoon of oregano to this. Now, use the dry kind, that's perfectly fine. And we want it to cook in during the last few minutes that this is sitting in the pan, because it's going to give it an added punch of flavor to it. So just put your oregano over top of it, stir it in a little bit, and like I said, let it cook for about 3-4 minutes. You'll be good to go. And then once it's done, you are pretty much ready to eat now, unless you wanted to make some bread or something to add to this, or something to add to the side of it, just as a side dish. So at this point, you are ready to plate it and go ahead and eat. And when I did, mine looked something like this. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of flavor in this. It's really wonderful to eat, and it's a really quick and easy meal to make. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out my cookbooks, which are available in bookstores worldwide. Have a great day.